Spirometry shows normal rates of airflow with improvement in the FEV1 and FVC with bronchodilators. Bronchodilators, if I said that right. Small airways also demonstrate reversibility. Lung volume studies are normal. Diffusion is slightly increased to 125% of predicted. My doctor basically said this is just a cute way of saying you have asthma. So if I've ever had any reason to quit smoking, this would probably be the perfect reason for me to go ahead and stop doing that. And of course, when you're diagnosed with asthma, you come home with a rescue inhaler and you come home with a regular cardosteroid inhaler. One Diskus inhalation device containing one foil strip of 60 blisters. What the fuck is this shit? Last time they just gave me Symbicort, which was just a, I hope I didn't break it, a regular inhaler like you think of when you talk about inhalers. And let me give you some backstory on that one. Okay, so back in 2019 is when I first started developing regular breathing problems. It's pretty much just a daily thing for me. And so I scheduled a pulmonary function test, and it was for like 6 months away from the date that I went to the doctor complaining that I was having problems with breathing. So while I waited for that appointment, my primary care physician went ahead and put me on Symbicort and a rescue inhaler. He said, just give this stuff a try, during the meantime and see if it helps you. Because that's a really long time to wait when you're in respiratory distress now. And they tell you, well, we can't test you for 6 months. Yeah, that was crazy. I could have been dying and, you got to wait 6 months. So I started taking inhalers, and they actually did help in the beginning. They actually helped me for several months. And then what happened was I went and had my pulmonary function test, and during that test, I wasn't smoking, I wasn't using a vape, and I stopped taking my bronchodilators, my inhalers, so that way there would be no interference in the test. So I actually went the entire month of October without doing anything, inhaling anything, and just hoping I would get some just really solid results. And looking back on this now, I think the same thing that happened last time in my test results where it says right here, lung volume studies are normal and diffusion is slightly increased to 125% of predicted. I think that's the same thing that they told me back in 2019. They didn't mention the other things. He said, the only thing that we really found on this test is that your diffusion is a little off. He said you're blowing out more oxygen than you should be. He said a lot of it should, when you breathe in air, you're converting it to oxygen, you're breathing out carbon dioxide. And he said my mixture was a little off. He said that could be either internal bleeding or it could be signs of asthma. So we said as long as the inhalers are working, just go ahead and take them. So flash forward to, pretty much that same day, I started taking my inhalers again. And the second time around using my inhalers, I wasn't getting any more benefit. So me having anxiety, of course, I thought, hey, maybe originally the reason why they worked is because I thought they worked, and it was kind of like a placebo effect where I felt comfort in taking something that I thought would help my breathing. And that would be the reason why when I stepped away from taking them and then I started taking them again, they weren't working, because I was just telling myself they were working. So I actually discontinued asthma treatment back then because I was getting no more benefit from doing asthma treatments. And therefore, ever since then, I've just having breathing problems again. So, here we are now 3 years, not quite 3 years, but almost 3 years later. And now they've made a few more notes. Like I said, that actually showed improvement in my FEV1 and FVC when I used an inhaler. So an inhaler actually benefited my breathing right there on the spot. And I'm not quite sure what the small airways demonstrating reversibility means, but I have a feeling that just basically means that there's something going on with the small airways, either just maybe they're not collecting as much oxygen, I'm not breathing as deep or not able to breathe as deep, and maybe with those bronchodilators, the inhaler, I was able to breathe a little deeper and fill those airways. So I do have experience using inhalers, so this shouldn't be a whole lot of an adjustment. After doing a little bit of reading on this one, though, the daily one that you take twice a day, this cardiosteroid, whatever you want to say. I don't know words. This looks like it's actually an inhalation powder. So I am familiar with these as well. This basically is like a disc-shaped thing. So if you've ever seen people in the commercials with, an inhaler that looks like more like they're putting like a mouthpiece in, that's what this is going to be, and you're inhaling a dry powder instead of a mist, you know, basically liquid. But it's going to work the same way, so I should be able to adjust to that pretty easy. And hopefully from this point I can get some relief from my breathing symptoms. See, I kind of just wrote off all the breathing problems that I was having to an anxiety symptom. Because I do suffer with a lot of anxiety. Obviously, you subscribers know that. But as it turns out, this might not actually be anxiety. Well, I mean, I do have anxiety, but the symptoms I'm having, such as the tightness in my chest and the shortness of breath, could actually be just written off as asthma. So that could help explain some of the symptoms. And it really, that's the problem with anxiety, is that a lot of the symptoms of anxiety will mimic other issues. So sometimes it's hard to really narrow down what's going on, if there is anything going on, because that's another aspect of anxiety. My anxiety may not be causing my breathing problems. It might actually be asthma. But at the same time, my anxiety could just be focusing on my breathing and making me think that something's wrong. And, therefore it just kind of continues that cycle of being afraid of something where there's not even actually a problem. I believe I'm starting to talk in circles now. So just to kind of basically state what I'm trying to say here is that maybe, doctors wanted to treat me for anxiety because I was anxious about real symptoms, a real problem that I did not have an answer for. So I stayed anxious about it, and maybe I wasn't so focused on these problems because of my anxiety. They weren't symptoms of anxiety. They were actually real symptoms that were causing me anxiety because I did not have a definitive answer for what was going on. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much the update and what's going on right now. And actually, my next video, which hopefully I'll get out there tomorrow, is going to specifically be about using inhalers. So I mean, if you're somebody who is using an inhaler, getting ready to start using an inhaler, and you have some questions about them, I actually do have experience with these from the past, and I did a lot of research and talked to a lot of doctors about, the important points about taking them. And I kind of developed my my own opinion, which I don't think anybody would disagree with, on a very certain aspect to using an inhaler that you really need to pay attention to when you're using them, because that will determine whether or not the medication works for you or not. And if it applies to you, I certainly hope you'll stop by and check it out. In the meantime, you guys have a lovely day or night, whatever it is for you, whatever time it is that you're watching this video. And as I always say, just take care of yourselves. See you in the next video.